Morning, everyone. I've got kat.jones here from Podium. Got a really exciting model that they've brought out, an adaptation model to allow directors of sport to plan their time, think about maybe a bit more long term. Kat and I have just been discussing how at the beginning of term, pupils come back and they've grown a bit and maybe done extra training or not done extra training, and maybe they're a bit clumsier because their bodies have grown. And I've had a look at it. It's a fantastic model, Kat. Do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kat Jones. I'm the Schools and Grassroots Club's research lead at Podium Analytics, and kind of Podium are a charity kind of set up to reduce the incidence and risk of injuries in sport. And Chris just touched on the adaptation model, which is something that we've been working on for 2 years, and that is primarily designed to help and support teachers and coaches to plan journeys of sport or physical activity and kind of look at where potential risks are, and how to really help the young people that they're working with kind of thrive in the activities that they're doing, and support the adaptation of them both physically, mentally, so that they kind of create lifelong relationships with the sport that they're doing, or just have the best time that they can do in the things that they love doing.
That's great. And of course, directors of sport, schools are coming back to school in the first couple of weeks. A lot of pupils will have changed over the holidays, won't they? How do you think this adaptation model could help directors of sport in the first couple of weeks of term?
Yeah, so it's a five-stage model which kind of looks at thinking around the connections that the young people that kind of students are, that they've got with the sport, they've got with the activity. So when we were kind of, Chris and I were just chatting earlier, in the beginning of term, you'll have students who are new at the school. You'll have those who have not done anything over the summer holidays. So kind of picking up a ball in those first few weeks is going to feel new, and probably new for lots of different ways. So their bodies have changed, so they don't play the same, or kind of they're not used to how their limbs are moving. And so the model kind of looks to try and kind of plan where your individual or your team is starting, and what they're kind of working to in terms of their goals, and actually thinking about their experiences to date of that activity or sport, and how you look to kind of maybe think about what is coming in those first few weeks, which might kind of increase their risk of injury. So, you've got four different sports starting all at the same time, and they've not done anything over the summer holidays. So kind of how does that loading look, and how do you look to, promote conversations with the students to see how they're feeling and how they're responding and how they're coping with not only kind of the cognitive kind of efforts going in with suddenly learning again, after kind of not doing anything over the summer, kind of as in addition to kind of the sports that they're really excited to play and get going with.
And what about sports? I'm just thinking, let's say netball and hockey that traditionally have their national finals, let's say at the back end of the Lent term. So I'm coming back in September for my team. That's something I'm aiming to peak for or qualify possibly. How could this model help with a peak performance, if you like, that's 6 to 9 months away?
Yeah, so it starts to look at your plan, so like a here to there. So where are you starting? Kind of understanding fitness levels, and how they are kind of their attitudes towards the sport in that kind of first time back. And then planning where you're aiming to. So that 6 to 9 months goal, and kind of working backwards. Where are kind of along that map that you've got on that timeline? Have you got potential clashes with other sports, or trying to understand where there might be some intense periods where they're doing lots of competitions at the same time, and where you can work with other sports to kind of manage training, or kind of manage the expectations that's on the players, to kind of work towards that goal. I think one of the things that we try and build in that map is kind of thinking about how realistic is your goal. So knowing that you've potentially got four new team members, can you really achieve what you're intending to? And you probably still can, but it's having that mindset of you've got people coming in at all different levels, or kind of new joiners in the team, they're getting to know each other, and they're kind of finding their place in the sport. So kind of how does that impact that goal that you've got, and how can you kind of think about those things along the way?
Yeah, because we've been speaking to Fionn Thompson at Leeds Beckett actually about athlete
Mm.
planning, and the other thing to obviously consider, particularly for the older boys and girls, is their exams, isn't it? And if you've got something 9 months
Yeah.
away, you can bet your life that there's going to be some mock exams or some practical work they've got to do, or even, full A levels or GCSEs. We can plan that in as well, can't we?
Yeah, most definitely. It's all about thinking, those, as I said, when we talk about intense blocks, that is kind of what's going on with them with other sports, what's going on with them with, the school play, or what other things are built into their lives in that period of time that you could be mindful of to help them have the best experience they can, and don't kind of feel overwhelmed and overloaded by what's coming. And know that, I think just knowing that you as a director of a sport is thinking about it and aware of those things, I think that can relieve some pressure, or kind of help them to feel like they're cared for in that environment, because someone understands a bit more about, they're juggling lots of things, and they just want to do the best that they can.
And obviously, the fantastic thing about your podium stuff, like your injury management data and uses, this is free to schools. So, where would schools access this, and how would you recommend that it's used, or what should they be looking for when they look at it at first glance?
Yeah, so this will be available on our website, so podiumanalytics.org, and it's, as you say, free to download. I think our mission as a charity, as I said, is to reduce kind of the risks of injury in sport, and we can see that, we can see us doing that in lots of different ways. So it's using resources like this to help in prevention. It's the injury management tool to kind of start collecting pictures of patterns of when things happen. But yes, it will all be available on the website. And I think this has been designed with and for teachers and coaches, directors of sport, and it works really well, or they found it most useful when, you can work through it, maybe with a conversation with me, or, having a download and having a look through and picking out some key questions that you've got. I think it's a really rich resource, and can be used in many ways. And I think there'll be some who can take it and use it to really plan their blocks of activity, and others, kind of a primary goal is just to trigger some thoughts and some questions, which will be really helpful and useful just to have in the back of kind of directors of sports minds as they're thinking about kind of entering kind of new blocks of activity and kind of planning and things like that.
Yeah, and obviously I've had a look at it. It is genuinely a fantastic resource, and very well laid out, simple to use, step by step. And again, hopefully this will be not used just by directors of sport, but that by their heads of sport or even their individual coaches. It can be used on many different levels, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the way it's set out, we kind of introduce a principle, explain kind of how that can be used in practice, and give some key questions. So it might be that you as a director of sport read through it and you see, I think some of my team could really use, or be, this section could be really helpful to them. So, highlighting it and sending it over to them to have a read, and just some of those questions or areas. The great thing about it is that it can work as a 5-stage model, or, taking bits of
Yeah.
each stage, being used individually, is all just kind of working towards kind of that supportive environment for young people in their sport.
It's fantastic, and we'll share this with all our members at the beginning of the term, and just so everybody knows, we'll also be having a webinar with Kat on Friday the 20th of September. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at the resource. Kat has very kindly offered to talk to us on the 20th September, but also make herself available if directors of sport have got questions around the program. That's right, isn't it, Kat?
Yeah, I think anybody who's interested in kind of learning a bit more, or as I say, kind of walking through how we see those different stages working in practice, I'd love to kind of support directors of sport in doing that, and very happy to chat about that, or anything else.
Well, that's brilliant, Kat. And as I say, I think Podium are doing a great job around this. For a charity to be offering these sort of resources for free to schools is fantastic. So thank you from all of us very, very much. And thanks for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.